Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking some incredibly practical, life-saving knowledge to completely demystify the science of fire safety. You know, fire is kind of this fascinating paradox. On one hand, it's an incredibly useful tool, literally the foundation that helped build human civilization. We rely on it to heat our homes, cook our food, power our industries, but when it's uncontrolled, it is an absolute, devastating force of nature that just consumes everything in its path. Understanding exactly how to interact with it safely isn't just some boring regulatory requirement, it's a fundamental life skill. So today, we're arming you with the taxonomy of survival. Let's dive in. To confidently defeat any enemy, we have to systematically understand it from the ground up. So, we're going to move logically from the microscopic science of a single flame right through to practical battle tactics you can actually use in an emergency. We'll be covering 1. The anatomy of fire, 2. The 5 fire classes, 3. The extinguisher arsenal, 4. Methods of fire extinguishment, and 5. The pass method.
All right, Section 1. The anatomy of fire. The absolute most fundamental concept to grasp right off the bat is that fire isn't just some unpredictable magic or an arbitrary act of nature. It's actually a very specific, highly predictable chemical reaction.
We used to just call it the fire triangle, but the underlying science has evolved as we've learned more about how combustion actually works. So, enter the fire tetrahedron. For fire to exist and sustain itself, it absolutely needs 4 interactive elements working together simultaneously. You've got heat, fuel, oxygen, and an uninterrupted chemical chain reaction. That 4th element, that's the invisible feedback loop that keeps the flames continuously igniting the surrounding fuel. Now, the strategic implication of this is incredibly powerful. You don't have to tackle the whole beast all at once. If you successfully knock out just one of these 4 pillars, if you cool the heat, remove the fuel, choke the oxygen, or break that chemical reaction, the entire fire immediately collapses and goes out.
Consider the number 21 for a second. That represents the exact percentage of oxygen that naturally makes up the atmosphere we breathe every single day. And that is exactly why fire has such an incredibly easy time breathing and growing. Oxygen is literally everywhere around us, just readily available to feed a spark. Understanding this constant built-in atmospheric supply is exactly why smothering techniques, tactics specifically designed to choke off that 21% supply, are so incredibly effective at stopping a blaze dead in its tracks. Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 fire classes. Because fuel is one of those 4 essential pillars we just talked about, it completely makes sense that different types of fuels create entirely different types of hazards. We classify these into 5 distinct categories that you absolutely need to memorize. Let's break these down real quick and paint a picture of each one. Class A involves your ordinary combustibles. This is the classic fire you probably drew as a kid, a runaway campfire burning wood, or a trash can full of discarded paper and cardboard. Class B covers flammable liquids and gases. Think of a really scary fuel spill in your garage involving gasoline, oil, or highly volatile paint thinner. Class C is electrical. Now, this isn't about what's burning, but what's actually powering it, like faulty sparking wiring inside a wall or a short-circuiting appliance. Class D involves highly combustible metals like magnesium or potassium, which act very differently than wood or gas. And finally, we have Class K, which is specific to the unique super high-temperature hazards of cooking oils and animal fats. Knowing how to react to each specific class is crucial, mainly because our basic human instinct is often entirely wrong in these situations. Take Class C electrical fires, for example. Water is a massive no here because it conducts electricity, and using it could lead to electrocution. This is a fatal mistake people make when they panic under pressure. Instinct says, hey, fire equals water. But throwing tap water onto a live electrical fire? Yeah, that doesn't solve the problem. It actually transforms a bad situation into a deadly, room-wide electrocution hazard. And the dangers get even more extreme and specific when we're talking about Class D and Class K fires. Class D involves industrial metals burning at blindingly hot temperatures, where ordinary extinguishing agents just fail completely, and sometimes they even feed the fire. Meanwhile, Class K represents an everyday, catastrophic hazard lurking in millions of homes and restaurants. If you mismanage a deep fryer fire by throwing a pot of water on it, that water immediately sinks below the superheated oil and instantly vaporizes into steam. That rapid expansion causes a violent, explosive spread of burning oil across the entire kitchen, instantly catching everything and everyone nearby on fire. Definitely not what you want. So, Section 3, the extinguisher arsenal.
Now that we've classified the enemy and understand how different fuels behave, let's explore the color-coded armory we actually use to fight back safely and effectively.
Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet. In an emergency, your brain is panicking, right? You literally do not have time to read the fine print on a metal canister. You have to rely on the bold label colors that directly correspond to the fire classes. A red label means water, which is strictly for Class A paper and wood fires. Cream is foam, effective for both A and B. A black label denotes CO2, which is absolutely perfect for B and C fires because it's a gas that won't conduct electricity. Blue is dry powder, your heavy-duty multi-purpose tool that can tackle A, B, C, and sometimes D. And yellow is wet chemical, uniquely designed for those super volatile Class K kitchen grease fires. Locking these color-to-class combos into your memory banks is a totally critical step in emergency preparedness. You know, you wouldn't use the exact same tool in a high-tech laboratory that you'd use in a fast food restaurant. Extinguishers are actually tailored for specialized environments. A black label CO2 tank is an incredible asset for saving millions of dollars of expensive computer servers. It forcefully displaces the oxygen to kill the flame, but leaves absolutely zero messy residue behind, protecting all those delicate microchips. The yellow label wet chemical extinguisher really shines in commercial kitchens because it doesn't just cool the cooking oil, it undergoes a chemical reaction that creates a thick, soapy foam barrier over the fat, physically trapping the vapors to stop reignition. And the blue label dry powder? That's your absolute go-to for tough, open-air industrial settings where you just need maximum knockdown power. But context is absolutely everything. Let's take that blue label dry powder extinguisher, for example. Yes, on one hand, it's the ultimate versatile hero, capable of fighting Class A, B, C, and even some Metal D fires. But on the other hand, it is highly dangerous indoors. If you deploy a dry powder extinguisher in a small, enclosed office space or a tight hallway, it aggressively expels a blinding, suffocatingly thick cloud of fine chemical dust. It immediately reduces visibility to zero, making it pretty much impossible to find the exit door. And it's incredibly hazardous to breathe. You might put out that small fire, but you trap yourself in a chemical fog in the process.
Section 4. Methods of fire extinguishment. It is vital to understand that every single extinguisher we just reviewed relies on one of 4 fundamental scientific methods. And these methods exist for one purpose only, to violently break that fire tetrahedron we discussed at the very beginning.
The first 2 methods are cooling and smothering. Cooling works by absorbing tremendous heat energy, rapidly dropping the temperature of the fuel far below the point where combustion can logically continue. Picture a crew of firefighters aiming a massive, high-pressure stream of water into a burning living room. Smothering, on the other hand, attacks that oxygen pillar. By throwing an airtight fire blanket over a burning pan or laying down a thick layer of expanding foam over an airplane runway, you're quite literally choking the fire, sealing it off entirely from the surrounding air it desperately needs to breathe.
Then we have starvation, which is honestly just as simple as it sounds, removing the fuel source entirely. Picture heroic wildfire fighters out in the wilderness using chainsaws and heavy bulldozers to scrape away all the trees, brush, and vegetation to create a wide, barren dirt containment line. They aren't putting water on the fire, they're literally starving the advancing flames of anything left to burn. Shutting off a main gas valve during a dangerous industrial leak is another perfect example of starvation in action. If there's no fuel flowing, there's no fire growing.
Our fourth method is by far the most technologically advanced: chemical inhibition. This involves disrupting the actual molecular combustion chain reaction using specialized powders, like the ones found in that blue label extinguisher, or certain clean agent gases. This is fighting fire on a microscopic level. It doesn't necessarily cool the fire or smother the oxygen. Instead, the chemicals literally break apart and neutralize the invisible free radicals and reactions that sustain those glowing flames, causing the fire to instantly collapse on itself.
All right, Section 5, the PASS method. We've talked deeply about the underlying science, we've broken down the classes, and we've toured the arsenal. But if you ever need to physically pick up an extinguisher in a moment of sheer panic, this is your tactical, direct empowerment checklist.
Here are the 4 steps designed to be easily remembered in a high-stress emergency. 1. Pull the pin to unlock the device and break that tamper seal. 2. Aim at the base of the fire. This is a very common and absolutely critical mistake. You must aim at the base where the fuel actually is, not the top of the dancing flames. If you just shoot the flames, well, you achieve nothing. 3. Squeeze the handle fully to forcefully release the extinguishing agent. And 4. Sweep the nozzle smoothly from side to side to cover the entire area of the burning fuel until it's completely out. It's that simple. Pull, aim, squeeze, sweep.
But before you ever grab that handle, I want to leave you with a golden rule. Using the wrong extinguisher can be just as dangerous as the fire itself. If you take away anything from our time together today, let it be the vital importance of matching the exact tool to the specific fire class. Using a red water extinguisher on a grease fire or a live electrical panel is a recipe for absolute disaster. Sometimes, taking the wrong action is infinitely worse than taking no action at all.
Which leads us to our final and perhaps most important question. You now know the science, you know the tools, and you know the methods. But do you have a clear emergency escape plan if prevention fails? Here is a terrifying reality for you. An uncontrolled fire doubles in size every 60 seconds. You literally do not have time to casually read an extinguisher label when your kitchen or office is rapidly filling with toxic black smoke. So I challenge you to look at your environment a bit differently today. Do you actually know where your nearest fire extinguisher is located right now? And more importantly, do you know what color the label is? Take just 2 minutes today to verify your exits and check those labels. Because knowledge is absolutely your best defense. Stay safe, stay prepared, and keep learning.